there's not like a formal introduction to this yet. Okay. I have to figure that out. But Allie Barlow, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
The sophomore setter out of Cedar Rapids, Iowa. Mm-hmm. Can you tell me what is in Cedar Rapids?
Not much.
Okay. What do you got?
Cedar Rapids, Hillary Clinton came there.
Okay.
Just chilling in Cedar Rapids.
She's not from there, for the record. She just showed up.
Just came there.
Random. Okay.
Yep. I feel like that's what most people know it by.
Really?
Yeah. I don't think really much else is there.
Right.
Lots of volleyball clubs around, so that's kind of helpful for me.
That is important, yeah.
Other than that, really not much. Iowa City's about a half hour away, so that's the University of Iowa.
Yep.
So that's pretty much where more people are familiar with.
Sure.
Yeah.
On the website, one of your hobbies is listed as cliff jumping.
Mm-hmm.
A couple of reasons I find that interesting. One, because it's just a cool deal. Also, because telling like a coach or someone, like having that info out there, just like, yeah, coach, one of my things I love to do is jump off of like elevated surfaces, usually into water, I'm imagining. So
yeah.
Talk me through that one. Yeah.
I mean, I guess I haven't like been this big extravagant like cliff jumper, but like when I came here, it was one of the first things I did, and it's so fun. And I just am an adventurous person, and so it's just fun. I've been to a couple of different places just around here.
Yeah. So where do you start? Like Black Rocks, like for something pretty simple? Yeah.
Black Rocks was my first one, and then to Rum Runners, and I want to do like Dead River and all those. Yeah. So we'll see. It's
a different world.
Yeah.
It's a different type of person, but it happens to be we have a lot of those type of people.
I know.
Up
so
here
that's
that
why
are very
it's good
willing.
for me here. Yeah.
I like that. But before NMU, second team All-State, all-conference, all-region type of player. I get to sing your praises on here.
Thank you.
But when did NMU get on your radar originally? You remember?
Junior year of high school.
Okay.
I was at a club tournament in Wisconsin, and we were playing in the Dells in like the bubble there. They have like a tournament digging in the Dells. I don't even know if that's where it was, but whatever. So I was playing there, worst tournament of my life. Like I played horrible, and I got benched. Like it was this whole thing.
Wow.
And so yeah, I was not very proud of how I was playing. And then I was at the hotel with my parents like the second night of the tournament, and I get a text from this girl named Pookie, who was assistant at the time.
Yes.
And hey, my name's Pookie. I'm from Northern Michigan. And I was like, Northern Michigan, like what? And I'm not even gonna respond. Like, why would I want to go all the way up there? And my dad was like, okay, well, you need to respond. Like, it's a lead. Someone's interested. I was like, whatever. So I responded, thankfully, and Pookie's a very chatty person, so we were just chit-chatting all night, and she'd asked me if I'd been to the UP, and I was like, I read it. I was like, have you ever been to the UP? And I was like, the UP? Like, what is she talking about?
Yeah, probably not even like the periods, like in between to give like, And so I was so confused, and I'm looking up online, like, what is the UP? Like, all this stuff. And eventually I found out it was all the way up here, and I thought originally like it was just in like Michigan. So that was, I think, one of the things I was like, I was like, I've never even really considered going up there. I bet you it's pretty cool up there. And right away, Pookie was like, all right, let's get you on a visit. And I was like, all right, I guess I'm doing this. So that night we talked about time to visit, and I had a couple other visits at the time, so I was really not looking forward to it that much. Just because, like, that's the time of recruiting that's, like, such a pain in the butt, like, missing school and having to go every single weekend to all these different colleges and whatever. I hear you.
Yeah, but she got me up here and ended up loving it, so good
So
thing
she
I
was there to
responded.
see this, from what you say, a terrible performance.
Yes.
She was there to witness that. Did she say in that performance or in that day of watching you, what stood out to make her reach out to you? Did you ask?
I didn't ask.
Really?
And I'm not, and I seriously have no idea, because
That's interesting, yeah.
that was like, I can remember that day specifically, and I was just so pissed off because I just felt like I played horrible.
Yeah.
And then I get a text that night, and I was like, okay.
Because you hear a lot about coaches, obviously, the statistics and the way you play and what you do and produce is very important. But a lot of people will just look for body language and, nonverbal cues and tells, especially from high schoolers who, if you can find people at that age who are pretty good about emotionally handling themselves, especially in those moments, I wonder if they were impressed at the way that you
handled not performing very well and being benched? Maybe, I wasn't there, but maybe you were a really supportive teammate from the bench or something. Something must have stood out to her. I'd be very curious to hear what was it that prompted that initial text message.
I have no idea. I mean, it wasn't like I was benched the entire day.
Of course,
it was whatever. We had
but in your mind,
4 games.
Being taken out at all at that point is
right. I'm like, oh, well,
the death sentence.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, absolutely.
Exactly. And there was coaches there from different schools that were watching me, and I was like, well, they're not even going to see me now, and didn't matter ultimately. But
You talk about the visits. What other schools are you looking at?
I visited Upper Iowa. I visited Minnesota State, Western Illinois, a Missouri school, Northern.
So a good spread geographically, but also divisions.
Yeah.
What did you notice on those trips? You go visit these places, how do you go into those visits prepared as a good, well-informed student athlete? What do you go into? What kind of questions do you ask? How do you come away with that with a good idea of, where you stand on that place?
I think I went in with it kind of just like, I had no idea where I wanted to go. Like I was kind of wanting to stay a little bit closer. So I was a little more lenient towards like Western Illinois at first, and then like Mankato or Minnesota State at first, just because they were closer. So I just kind of went in asking all these new questions. And at Western Illinois, they had a new coach. So he really didn't know much at the time because it was his first season. It was his first spring season.
Yeah.
He hadn't even coached a real season. Huh?
Leathernecks, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So one of the cooler, that's got to be one of the cooler games
cool.
in general. Yeah, that's pretty sweet.
Yeah. And then I found out pretty quickly that wasn't the school for me.
Okay. Now that's probably, not to interrupt you, but I feel like those parts along this kind of recruiting journey, it's almost, I equate it to like finding a job or a career path. Finding out what's not for you may actually be more valuable
100%.
than finding what the perfect fit is.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I had gone to Western Illinois right after, like I went straight from Northern to Western.
Okay.
And I had an overnight here. And then just that next, I think it was a Sunday or something, I had the day visit at Western. And so knowing basically after my visit at Northern, I was like, oh my God, I'm going here.
Okay.
And then I had to go the next day to that. And I was just so
checked out.
Yeah.
Yeah. So when you came on campus, that was one of those, we've talked a lot about that, like with some of the other athletes, like they get to campus and they have that overwhelming positive feeling that they feel very comfortable here and that this is the spot. You had a similar.
Oh, yeah. Immediately.
That's neat. Okay.
Yeah. We went to Sol Azteca and I was like, this is the place for me. No,
that's actually the same. That's the same spot I went on my recruiting visit. We went Sol Azteca, no longer.
Sold.
Right. But that was a spot. You're right on the water and there's, good food, good little spot.
Yeah. And then we went to Frosty Treats after. With,
oh my gosh. No wonder you might have almost committed on the spot.
I know. Yeah. And I love ice cream. So like that, those two were just like, wow.
That's good.
And then they took me out to Black Rocks. And that's where I like really was like,
wow. Ooh. So I think that's what's interesting too, is that volleyball, and I forget this sometimes, but that was probably in the summer. Right?
It was like May.
It was May. Okay, so early on still. Okay, because I know volleyball's timeline is very different in that, like, my official visit, and for football, official visits usually come in December, January, where you're on campus. And thankfully, I had actually seen Marquette in the summer because I came up for a summer camp. But for a lot of people, their official visit is their first impression of this place, and you're walking through chunks of ice and snow to get around, and that could be a tough deal. So probably seeing it at that time of year probably helped your decision.
Oh, yeah. Oh, my gosh.
Yeah.
It was just so beautiful. And I'd never seen anything like it. And I remember walking out, like, we watched the sunset at the beach, and then we, like, walked out to Black Rocks first. And I just, like, literally thought I was in a movie. Like, I had never seen anything. Like, from Iowa, I have a cornfield in my backyard. Like, I've never seen anything like that. And so I was just so amazed. And I was sending my parents pictures like this whole time that I was with the girls. And my dad told me the next day, or I think he told me like when I committed. Yeah. He was like, I knew like as soon as you sent me that picture, you were going to go to school
here.
That's
so neat. So. That's really cool. And I think, again, talking about the different sports and comparing, the volleyball visit and some of the other sports where your roster size is a bit smaller than, say, a football or a track and field or a swim and dive sometimes where they have larger rosters, these visits and all these interactions can feel so personal or intimate, for lack of a better term, because it is just you and you probably get an entire day with, was it just head coach, supporting, who was all involved in that day?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I met the day before. I met with Pookie and then had dinner with Pookie and Mike. Okay. And then I think 3 of the girls picked me up. And
that's awesome. And you go and spend a bunch of time with them. Like, and it's just you. Like, you were probably the only recruit that was up there for that time. Yep. And so, like, that is such a unique experience, and that, you know, there's other sports where you might have a group of 10 to 12 recruits on campus at once. And, you know, there's something comforting in having a bunch of people who are in your same shoes, right, to be there and be like, feel them out in terms of, like, what do you guys think? Like, is this, you know, kind of get a read off of them, but also having that experience that is, like, totally curated and tailored to you and trying to make you, like, really sell you on Marquette as a place is really cool.
Yeah, and they did a really good job. Because, and we went back and just spent the night at the dorms. And Angie, who was on the team at the time, she's a middle. I was staying with her and Megan.
Oh, okay.
And they gave me, somehow we started talking about ramen noodles, and I had never had them before. Okay. And they're like, oh my God, like, you've never had ramen noodles? And I was like, no.
Revelation, yeah.
And so they made me ramen noodles, and they sent this picture of me in their team group chat, which I got like a year after I committed. Like, when I finally got on the team, I see this picture, and they're like, we were all laughing at you because you never tried ramen noodles. But yeah, it was just kind of like crazy how immediate it was and how much I got along with them. And
so the next question was going to be, when you have to eventually commit and make a decision of, again, in your young life, this is like one of the biggest decisions that you've had to make. And it's not like you're doing it on your own, obviously. There's people that help you, guide you along the way, your family obviously being at the forefront of that. But I was going to ask, how do you go about that? As an old-fashioned pros and cons list, it seems like the decision was pretty much made up in your mind right away. It's the easy one to make.
Yeah, it was. And before that, I had definitely the pros and cons list. And I was trying to, like, X out the schools. And I had a pretty good scholarship from Upper Iowa. And so that was, like, my parents were really rooting for that one because it's an hour and a half away as opposed to 8 hours. And I was on a lot of scholarship versus not as much. So it was like they really wanted me to go here.
Yeah, valid. Like,
right. And I couldn't do it. And so, then I just had to call the coaches up, and I thought it was going to be this whole thing, but it's literally probably like a 30-second phone call. Right. They're like, all right, you're not interested? Thanks.
But you know what? I'm glad you did that as someone who has no involvement, and I'm sure they are too, because I know there's so many people that, for them, it's obviously a business. And, like, imagine if you're just left hanging and then you're scrolling one day. It probably happens so often.
Oh, my gosh, yeah.
You're scrolling one day and you realize, oh, Barlow's going to Northern. Okay, yeah, sure. I guess I didn't need to know that. So I'm glad that, I hope people still do that. I remember having to make those same calls. Like, that's the worst. You dread it, and in 30 seconds they handle it usually very professionally, wish you the best, hang up, don't talk to them again.
Yep, exactly. Yeah, and I made sure to save my call for Northern last.
You did.
So that I could, so that I had something to, like, look forward to. But I had to do it by myself, and I went and I sat in my bedroom and I typed up my little script so I could.
You did. You were reading it.
I was reading it. Yeah, because I was scared I was scared I was gonna go blank. Like, be like, oh yeah, actually I'm going to school here, and then be like, like. So I had it all typed up and I read it, and that's it.
That's good. Yeah. I like that. I think that's a decent strategy, because I know a couple people in those same shoes where, you know, you get to the actual moment and then you just can't think of maybe the words to say or how to, you know, deliver a message like that.
And I didn't want to seem mean or anything, so I knew exactly what I was going to say, had it ready. And
well, how often at that point in your life have you had to deliver that kind of news?
Never.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you don't exactly get coached up on things like that.
Yeah.
But I wanted to talk freshman year for you. Coming in, you appear in 12 matches, you start in 9. What stands out to you about year one in terms of just volleyball?
In terms of volleyball, I had to work really hard to get that, and I'm really proud. Because we had a 5th-year setter, Lauren Vandermortel, who was amazing, and I knew that coming in, I would have to work my butt off to be able to even see the court a little bit. So to be starting was really special and really rewarding for me.
Yeah, absolutely. And then off the court, again, volleyball is a sport that the roster size, depending on the school, fluctuates. And it's one that it's big enough where that you could have a lot of smaller groups or like cliques on a volleyball team, because there's enough girls that maybe there's, 3 or 4 of them that kind of get along better than the rest, and they kind of separate and do their own thing. And, you have another that kind of, secede off and do their other thing, for lack of a better term. But it feels like with this group, that's been the main emphasis from the coaching staff and also from you guys, is that like we're one collective. We try to really prevent any of that or any kind of split happening. Is that something they talked with you about throughout the recruiting process, and how has that lived up since getting on campus?
Yeah, they definitely talked about that during the recruiting process. The girls more so. I mean, obviously Mike was talking about how like, oh, our team culture is really good, and
of course, and
whatever.
You expect all the coaches to say that. Absolutely.
And so when I started talking to the girls, they're like, all right, what do you want to know? Like, we'll give you everything. I was like, oh, okay. But yeah, they were just telling me how like they just kept saying like, I know this sounds fake, but like we really are all best friends, and like this just sounds so cliche, but like it's a family. And I was like, okay, like
sure, guys,
whatever. Yep. Yeah. And then I get here and it's like exactly that. And
now you get to be the one that looks like you're spewing lies to the next.
I know. Stupid, but yeah, I really do mean it. Like all these girls are my best friends, and
that's awesome.
Yeah, we all get along so well, which is crazy. Like for girls especially, like there's got to be some type of drama somewhere usually, but like we really haven't. We're all just so close, and I don't know, it's been
a big
great.
part of that goes back to your guys' shared experiences with each other, and Mackinac jumps off the board in terms of like how many teams can go through this transformative experience together where you're experiencing, in a sense, a whole new world and being part of pioneering a sport to a new location and all these things when it comes to a university and an athletic-wide level that are so new you guys get to experience together. Talk about that, I guess, but also some of the other things that you guys do as a group that maybe aren't as well covered and, you know, on the media side of things.
Yeah. Well, Mackinac was really fun. That was the time that everyone like really got to know each other.
I believe it.
And it was nice. Like my class at the time was 8 people. Yeah. And that's a lot of freshmen to bring in to a roster of 20. So like we had almost half of our team were freshmen. And so Mackinac, it was like a week after we had reported. And so we went there, and that was like when we really got to know each other, and we're all sitting there in one bedroom, all cluttered onto one bed. Like, okay, tell me your deepest, darkest secret. Like, oh my gosh, all that stuff. And so everyone got to know each other really well. There was a bike crash. I don't know if you've heard about that. Sydney on our team, Sydney Bartles and Lauren Cardwell, there was at night, we were coming back from, I think it was like dinner or something. Okay. And it was the whole team. We were all biking back, and these 2 bikers come with no headlights, nothing. And they just boom right into Sydney, and Lauren falls into the rocks. Sydney gets up like all scraped up, and Sydney at the time, quietest girl on the team. Like she was brand new freshman, didn't really want to say anything. Sure. And of course, so she's the one that gets knocked off her bike. But yeah, so that was really funny. Brought us closer.
Okay, good.
She's healed.
And they say everyone walked away from that.
Yep. The bike was a little, we had to walk the way back because the wheel wouldn't. Sure. Whatever. But
sure. Not a first on the island, I'm sure.
No.
I've seen some of the festivities that go down there. Yeah.
Yeah. But other than that, I mean, lots of. That's good. Yeah. Lots of team bonding. Like we do always a like preseason. Like the night that we get there, the report day, we'll like go to Mike's house and have dinner and play all these games and whatever. But yeah,
the number is so unique. When you say that number, like 20, like it's not so big that it's this like overwhelming amount of people where you're coming in and having to learn all these different names, but it's also not so small, you know, that it's you and like 4 others and you know everything about every single one of you. You know what I mean? So to still be able to have that level of going over to someone's house and being able to share those moments is really, really unique. But I want to talk about that team bonding, right? Another one of those things, add it to the list of stuff they probably talked about. And you said, sure, guys, like, absolutely. I'm sure you have great team bonding up here. But what does that phrase mean to you now, having gone through a couple of years of it?
Now, having gone through it, we do a lot of it. And it's a lot different than I think a lot of other schools would do it. Like, we obviously do like the sit down and like get to know each other type stuff, but we also have like a beach practice where it's like not really a practice. We just kind of have a beach day, and the whole team is there, and we're all spending time playing spike ball on the beach and whatever. So it's just stuff like that has really like brought us closer, and kind of it's more like not getting to know each other in the sport, but more like outside. What do you like outside of the gym and whatever?
Yeah, I mean, it's taking you guys out of that environment, and does that help disassociate from a mental standpoint this idea of you guys are all very like obviously competitively natured. So sometimes I feel you have to take yourself out of that environment in order to maybe even let your guard down a little bit and enjoy the time with these girls.
Yeah. Yeah. And even sometimes we'll do in preseason, we have like preseason games, and like last year we had like the Olympics.
Yeah.
That gets competitive.
I'm going to say spike ball, by the way, like that could still get ridiculous.
No, it can get nasty, but, I mean, in the end, we're all friends and whatever, but there are medals at the end on the line, and my team got second place last year, so hopefully next year we'll up our game. But yeah, it ended in like a karaoke performance, and that was the deciding factor. Like your group of 4 had a karaoke performance, and
that's good. I like that.
Yeah.
Was there a song of choice?
Ours was Unwritten.
Really?
Yeah.
That is a great
and that was like
peak
time
song.
Of that song. It was it was a good pick.
Holy cow.
I know, and we got second.
So is that an execution error? Because it's definitely not the song.
I don't know.
Who were the judges? Who were the judges?
The judges was Jackie's family, and Jackie was on my team. So I feel like maybe that had some like
a little tampering, not trying to show favoritism.
Yes, and then they
leaning the other way.
Yeah. I don't know. Could be.
That's
I thought our performance was pretty good.
That's good. Speaking of the communication side of things, I wanted to know, back to volleyball, your communication back to kind of coming into this with Mike and the staff. How do you bring up those conversations of your role on the team? Like, how is that portrayed to you throughout the recruiting process, and how do those conversations continue after year 1 to year 2, and now, closing out year 2? Talk about those conversations and what those were like, especially coming in.
Mm-hmm. Well, as a setter especially, I knew that I would have to come in as a leader right away.
Yeah.
Which is tough to do as freshmen. And I had to do that in high school as well, because our setter before me was a senior, graduated. So I was coming in and I was kind of really the only option.
Okay.
And so here's me, little 14-year-old Allie, trying to lead all these like 18, 19-year-olds. And I'm like,
yeah.
So, I mean, that kind of helped in terms of coming in here, being young, playing with 5th-year seniors. Obviously, I wasn't a leader by any means.
No one is right away. Absolutely.
Right. But definitely started showing some of those traits by the end of the season and when I started actually playing. Mm-hmm. And Mike told me, he said, if you want to see the court, if you want to play, if you want to be like an essential part of this team, you need to step it up. You got to be a leader or whatever. You have to have the rules of a setter. And then this year, coming into this year, he told me again, like, you're going to have to really like tell people what's up.
Take it to the next level, right? Yeah.
Be the lead. And then this year, again, we just had this conversation again. Same thing, like even more, like you got to be a leader. You got to keep pushing people. And I think there's never really going to be a point where like, all right, you're
satisfied,
good.
Right? Absolutely.
There's always going to be something more for me, which I'm glad. It's always good to work on stuff like that. But yeah.
How would you describe your leadership style?
Definitely more by action. Yeah, especially like in the weight room, in practice. Obviously, I'm a very like energetic person. I love to pump people up and whatnot. Yeah. But yeah, I do a lot of my leading by action, doing what I need to be doing, what everyone else should be doing, whatever.
Yeah, we've talked about that with maybe some of the other athletes, for example, and that dependability factor of someone who shows up day in and day out, does exactly what they're supposed to do, might have the blinders on at first in terms of like put their head down and get their work done before really branching out. But there's something about that and the dependability and the stability of knowing as a teammate, as a coach, as someone there, that Allie is going to show up every single day and get her stuff done. And people gravitate towards that. And so I think a lot of times what you see in that regard is someone who shows up and does things the right way. People gravitate towards them whether they like it or not. Yeah. And so then the challenge, I'm sure, from the outside looking in for you now is to take that. Obviously, you've branched out and you've become one with this great group of girls and this team. And you can hear, if you're at practice or you guys are lifting or obviously on match day, those kind of things, the positive affirmation and the support that you guys give each other is next level. And I don't think there's a team on campus that does it better than you guys, especially in a match day type atmosphere, how encouraging you guys are. So now you have this set in stone. You have this fact of your team relies on you to be there to get your stuff done. They've come to know you for that dependability. You have this encouraging persona about you. Now that you've built that rapport, now I feel that you have something to stand on when it comes to, checking them when maybe they're in the wrong, or, helping correct something in a certain way. And because of all the things that I've just mentioned and the rapport that you've built with them, they understand it's coming from a place of love and it's coming from a place of them wanting to be better. How do you grow in that area? Because I think that's not necessarily the final step, but it's one of the really hard hurdles to get over, especially as a relatively young leader.
Yeah, and it definitely takes a lot for me to do that, to like tell people or like check people. But after like kind of developing through the past 2 years, I've been more comfortable doing that.
Yeah.
And my teammates definitely know it's from a place of love. And we did this thing my last year, spring season, and we talked about how everyone best responds to criticism.
Oh,
and I think cool. I've kind of used that like for every person. Like some people like yell at me, scream at me, whatever. Some people like, okay, if you scream at me, I'm going to cry. Don't do that.
Yeah.
So it's just like kind of finding that balance and knowing for each person how they're going to react, what they need to like actually be successful. So I think that has helped me a lot in terms of like figuring out how to like actually be a voice and push people in that way. So yeah, that's been really helpful.
That's really neat. I think that's a mark of a good coach too, who understands how to get his or her players to reach their ceiling.
Yeah.
And I'm bringing out my phone, not because I missed a crazy text message or something along those lines, but earlier I asked Coach Lozier to describe you in a couple words. So I wanted just a couple words, maybe smart, dependable, reliable, tough, like some of those kind of adjectives or those things that would describe your play. This is what he sent.
Oh.
I don't know if we can see that on the cameras. It's a paragraph. So I think I'm going to read a portion of it.
Okay.
And I thought it was really, really incredible stuff. And he talks about, he said, I could definitely give you words if you're doing a feature on the podcast, but basically that I don't think it would do justice to what you've meant to him in this program already, and talked about you being unanimously voted as a captain by every one of your teammates, and talking about how you just carry yourself as a captain and the way that you enter a room and your persona that you give off and the energy that you give off. It lifts other people up. And I think the big thing that he finished off the paragraph with was that NMU has had some memorable captains in his time. He believes that you will be one of the greats when all is said and done.
Oh.
And so that was a really, really powerful text, and I thought I would share that with you.
Yeah.
So not only did he not just give me a couple words, he could have just thrown me a couple, and that could have been it. But he thinks very highly of you, and I'm just curious, coming off of that, talk about your relationship with him and how he's helped to, empower you and grow you as a leader and as a young woman.
Mm-hmm. Well, first of all, thanks, Mike. Second of all, yeah, I think our relationship has grown a lot, especially this past year, like me as a sophomore, kind of having a little bigger role.
Yeah.
He's helped me learn how to step up a lot and learn how to do what I need to do and pull people along with me. And so it's been really nice, and I feel comfortable going to him with anything, and I think that he feels the same. So going into these next few years, being a captain, I think it'll be really a healthy like relationship and a special like link from the team to captain to coach. And so that's my goal with it. But yeah, Mike has been great, and I think we all love him as a coach. So yeah.
Staying on that thought, is coaching in your future?
I don't know. I don't think so.
Because when you go back and you're talking about, I think the thing that really stands out to me so far in our conversation, a lot does, but the one big piece is you talk about the criticism styles from your teammates. And from a coaching perspective, that's nuts and bolts. Like that's something that the best of the best do at a very high level. And so, if you're able to do that as a sophomore in college, at least at a beginning phases of understanding how to work with different individuals and cater to their needs in order to help them reach their respective ceilings. Like, I'm just saying,
I know.
Don't close the door.
It would be really cool.
Yeah.
I've never really like actually thought about it.
Okay.
It would be kind of a cool opportunity though.
Yeah. No, I was curious about that. But, back to this team, how do you describe, when it comes to a practice environment, how do you describe what that looks like, what that feels like, what the day-to-day is with this squad?
Our team is full of a lot of hard workers, and I think that shows in practice every single day. And if it doesn't, our coaches do a good job of holding us accountable. Yeah. And obviously sometimes it'll make us mad, be like, oh, coaches are on one today, blah, 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 whatever. But like, it's good and they help us. But yeah, even like you say our positive like match day.
Yeah.
That's pretty much how it is in practice. Like, especially once we get to doing like 6-on-6 drills and whatever stuff like that, more like live play. Super, super energetic, super positive. And everyone just really wants to get better. And usually the beginning of practice will be more like, okay, break it down, focus on these things. And our girls do focus a lot on trying to actually apply those things, which, I mean, everyone as an athlete, that's your goal.
Yeah.
But yeah, definitely super positive and a lot of brain work, a lot of like trying to get your mental space right, and we focus a lot on that. Like before practice, we'll do neurofuel is what it's called, and it's just it's just like kind of a mentality thing, and we'll listen and we'll lay down, turn off the lights, and listen to basically like a 2-minute little clip of just like something about confidence, something about mentality, breathing, stuff like that.
Yeah, absolutely. So then going into up to the present now, talk sophomore year, second team all GLIAC, 2-time GLIAC setter of the week. I bring up those accolades, one, to just brag about you, but also, to set up a question in that, are those a good way to quantify and measure the strides that you've made as a volleyball player and as a person? Or are you not so interested in maybe getting that sense of like physical measurement or, evaluation?
Mm-hmm. It's definitely cool getting those awards, but I don't think it's really everything to me.
Sure.
I think a lot of my growth comes through seeing like success from my teammates. And as a setter, I think my job is to set other people up for success. And so seeing other people succeed, I feel like is what makes me feel like I succeed.
Absolutely.
So I think that's a big part of it. So it's not necessarily like the GLIAC setter of the week. Like obviously, yeah, that's super cool, but it's not necessarily really about that for me.
Textbook answer, by the way.
Thank you.
It was just kind of like a note of like when you get a job after school, there's no all league for
mm-hmm.
if there's a digital creator honorable mention all league team, like I've yet to hear of it, or a first team all podcaster. I would love to find it if there is, but I've yet to find it. So let me know. But I guess to kind of close things off, what's next after volleyball? I know we still got some time here. Is that something you even think about now, or is that a bridge that you cross when it comes time?
Something I think about a lot.
Okay.
I really don't know, and that's really scary to me, but I mean, I'll figure it out as we go along. I'm a marketing major. So right now I'm kind of looking for like marketing internships, stuff like that. That's my next step.
Sure.
Hopefully after that, maybe moving around somewhere cool, finding a job. And then eventually I think I would want to move back here. Like,
really?
I think I just kind of have fallen in love with Marquette, and
that's neat.
Yeah, it'd be really cool to live back here when I'm older.
Very cool. I think a lot of people end up, myself included, come here and really enjoy this place, but maybe don't see it as like a forever home potentially due to, like different job opportunities or size or other kind of, constraining factors. But it's neat that maybe you do see this as an opportunity for that.
Yeah.
Just a couple more for you. One was, what have you learned about this team and this group of girls in your time here? And it's kind of a broad and open-ended one, but I'll let you answer it whatever way you please.
I've learned that this team is a lot different than a lot of other teams.
Yeah.
I keep going back to like the bond of our team, but like I think that's what makes us so awesome, and that's what makes like my experience here so amazing. Like I've just learned that compared to other schools, either A, that I've visited, or B, like just that I've heard about, like it's just crazy how positive it is, how much we all get along. Like I know I keep saying that, but it's just so true, and it's just what makes it so great here.
Yeah. And finally, what are you most proud of in this volleyball journey that you've had and still have more to go out and accomplish? But what are you most proud of yourself thus far?
I think I'm most proud of just kind of my individual progress. Not even necessarily like winning and losing, just like seeing how much I've improved since my freshman year, stepping in here on the first day.
Yeah.
And it's definitely a lot of like during the spring season is a lot of that, like breaking it down, like a lot of mentally tough, like feeling like you suck, but then in the end you're so much better because of it.
Absolutely.
So yeah, I think that's probably what I'm most proud of looking back on like film from then versus now and whatnot.
The last takeaway that I have is we got to find out what Pookie saw.
I know.
We have to find out what Pookie saw in you that day to prompt the original text. Like I'm going to go ask. Like I'm going to figure that out.
Seriously, yeah.
For both of us, I think we need to have some kind of closure on that. But
I agree. Let me know.
Yeah, you've been awesome. Thank you so much, Allie. It was a lot of fun.
Thank you.
As a cool way of closing out the podcast, I wanted to hear from your perspective what you remember. And I know this is digging back a little ways, but I wanted to see what you remembered from that day and what prompted you to reach out to her after, in her mind, what was an awful performance.
Yeah, I remember that was a tournament that both Mike and I went to. And so we would kind of like divide and conquer all the courts. And then there was a time where we met up together to watch this. It was actually a really good match that was going on between her team and another team. And what's funny is I don't know if I remember her like being benched at this point, but I remember of the balls that we saw her take, we knew she had a high ceiling. So her form was great. She had great technique. We liked her like setting decisions. She got the middles involved. And we could tell that she was super strong from the way that she was like chucking balls across the court. She was jump setting, which I like to see. And so just from that, we knew that she could, even if she maybe wasn't having the best game, I don't really remember that at all. And she looked like she was enjoying time with her teammates. She looked like she could take feedback. She was talking to her teammates. So all of that just really equaled someone that could be coached to reach the level that, we're hoping to have on the team.
That's super neat.
We reached out to her. Yeah, we reached out to her, and she responded back, and then we got her on NMU's campus. And as you know, once you're on NMU's campus, it's really hard to look the other way.
Yeah. That's awesome. It's so funny to me that you can remember it so differently, because from her perspective, it was so vividly like a terrible day, terrible performance. And I think she had built up these expectations. I'm sure you guys weren't the only college coaching staff in attendance at this big event, but from your perspective to hear that you don't necessarily remember her getting benched or having an awful performance or those kind of things, it's so funny to hear the other side of it.
Yeah, and I think sometimes a lot of players put a ton of pressure on themselves at those tournaments because they know coaches are there watching. When in reality, every coach is reasonable in that they know not every player is going to have a great day, but it's like in the swings that we see or in the touches that they're getting, is there something there that we can work with?
Yeah.
Obviously, if someone is being benched for just being a terrible teammate and, not a great person on the court, well, then that's one thing. But if someone is like going for it and they're being aggressive and you can tell that they, are at least trying to make these adjustments and they're just missing it close, then that's fine, right? Like we can still be like, well, you're still going for it and you're still, we heard your coach tell you this and you made that adjustment. Maybe it was an overcorrection, but at least you tried, right?
Yeah.
Like those are the things we're kind of looking for, because then you can take that and mold it into whatever that next step would be.
Of course. And the other part of it too was, and I was curious, we had talked about it, is, I didn't know if you guys had seen something from her in terms of, you kind of talked about, her body language, the way that she supported her teammates when she wasn't in the game, or how she took some of that feedback. Do you remember maybe some of the nonverbal cues that stood out to you from that day?
I do remember that she would make eye contact with her teammates. And so even, again, in her mind, I guess she had a terrible game. But, from our perspective, when she was in the match, whether they got the point or not, she would, bring the team in to the middle. And I could see that words were being exchanged, but she seemed calm and she made eye contact with her teammates, which I think is very telling of a player. A lot of times, right, it's like if you make a mistake, you're kind of bummed that you've let your team down. And so it's really easy to come to the middle and want to look at like your teammates' shoes and not their face, because you're like, dang it, I just messed up. But I do remember that her body language just showed like, hey, I got the next one. Like, hey, my bad, I got the next one, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's very telling, especially for a setter.
Absolutely. Sweet. You are the absolute best. Thank you so much. I think that's all I needed. She was fantastic on the podcast, and I thought this would be a neat way to kind of like tie it all together at the end.
Cool. That's thanks for thinking of me. This was fun.